Minimates that are more than meets the eye. Here's your look at the Diamond Select Transformers Minimates, Optimus Prime, Starscream, Bumblebee, and Shockwave. Transformers are living human-like robots with a unique ability to turn into vehicles or beasts. The stories of their lives, their hopes, their struggles, and their triumphs are chronicled in epic sagas that span an immersive and exciting universe where everything is more than meets the eye. Each Minimate minifigure features 14 points of articulation and fully interchangeable parts. While the Autobots wage a battle to destroy stuff, how about the first thing we do is figure out how tall these Minimates stand. I'd also like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that provided the samples of the Transformers Minimates that we could have a look at in this review. Considering for the fact that in many of the cases they have additional helmets, it's going to give them a little more of increased height versus regular Minimates, resulting in the figures like, for example, of Bumblebee. Bumblebee seems to stand at almost 2.5 inches in height, or about 6 centimeters, a little over 6 centimeters tall. For those following this channel, thank you for that, by the way. Appreciate it. For those following the channel, we just recently had a look at some Minimates. We can bring in the previously looked at G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how the Transformers, again, are a little bit taller because they do have the helmets, and in some of the cases, like Bumblebee, he has those extra little horns sticking up as well. For the accessories with these Minimates, you're really not getting as much as you would have got with the G.I. Joe Minimates, the set that we looked at before. Considering for the fact that really, for the most part, their weapons are already on their bodies like Starscream and Shockwave, the only characters that really actually come with accessories are the ones for Bumblebee and Optimus Prime. Speaking of which, we'll kind of start things off at the left side of this review and kind of make our way across to the right. So I'm going to start things off with little tiny Bumblebee. Now, Bumblebee comes included with a little tiny blaster. The blaster looks to be like molded in chrome plastic. It doesn't look like it's been painted, although I could be completely incorrect by that as well. You can see, yeah, there is the mold lines on either side of the gun, but for the most part, it's a nice little small compact gun. Kind of actually looks like a drill, but this does fit into his hand like all the other Transformers. Just fit it into his hand. It doesn't even have to be really for Bumblebee, but considering for the fact that Shockwave already comes included with a blaster on the end of his arm, and Starscream comes included with the null cannons, the null blasters on either sides of his forearms, I think I would probably be more inclined to display Bumblebee with the blaster in his hand instead. Give him some fighting chance after all. The figure also comes included, this is really interesting, with an alternate head sculpt. And why it looks so different like this is that this head sculpt is based on the original toy, where he had just a straight visor as opposed to the eyes that you would have in the cartoon. To change out the head sculpt, all you do is just remove the helmet. A little harder, I find, on the Bumblebee. Just kind of get your finger in there. There we go. Maybe it would be helpful as well just to remove the gun in case I drop it. Then from there, just wiggle the head off the ball joint, and then replace it with the one that has the visor, making sure it's completely plugged in place. Then go ahead and replace the helmet. And you can see, yeah, there's Bumblebee as he would have looked like from the original toy line, not from the cartoon. I think that's a nice touch, the fact that they would have included it. Although for me, I kind of like the idea of having Bumblebee look more like his cartoon counterpart than the one that he would have looked like from the toy. Let's go ahead and just replace that back the way we had it. Again, just popping these off. All of the parts on Minimates are generally interchangeable. So if you wanted to have some fun, by all means, you can easily just yank off Bumblebee's arm and replace it, like, for example, with Starscream's arm, if you wanted to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that in this review. Go ahead and instead put the helmet back in place. Yeah, I like the look of Bumblebee here. He's very gold in color. Looks more like Goldbug than he does Bumblebee. I wonder if we are going to get a variation of this Bumblebee in more the lighter lemon yellow that he would be in the cartoon. But I am digging, though, for the time being, the metallic gold that they've used here. Paint looks nice and clean. You can see he's got the Autobot logo there on the top of his hood. Now, in this case, with all of the Transformers, they are still using the standard Minimate body. You can kind of see how it's sandwiched in between. To get the extra bulk for it comes to their bodies, they're basically just taking shell pieces and sliding it over top of their existing bodies. You can still make out what would be a thing that, well, the parts of it that would transform for obvious reasons. The Minimates aren't going to transform, but you can see like the front part of his Volkswagen Bug. And again, let you be able to transform it. But I like the fact that, again, looking at it, it looks like the way he looked from the cartoon. Really nice finish from all the way around. Figure does, like I said, come included with a display stand. All of the Minimates come included with a display stand, although they are the same for all 4 of them. And to attach them, all you do is just take, as you can see, there's bottoms, 2 holes on the bottoms of his feet. Just plug it in place, and you got yourself Bumblebee on his display stand. Now, really, none of the Minimates have difficulty standing. I mean, you're seeing right now, they're standing fine. They're a little off-balanced, depending, again, the way that you've got the feet. So if you want to have them a much more stable footing, then yeah, but by all means, make use of the display stand. For the articulation, now we're not going to cover off the articulation on all 4 of them, simply just because they're all going to be the same times 2, times 3, times 4. Starting first with the head sculpt, it is on a ball joint, so it rotates back and forth, up and down. Because, again, he does have the additional shell over top of his regular Minimate's body, he does lose a little bit when it comes to his neck articulation. You can see how much closer the head is to the rest of the body. It's still fine. You can still rotate the head back and forth. That's not an issue. And it does just give you enough clearance that you can move it up and down. You can see how little of a space there is between the top of his head, or the bottom of his head, and the top of the neck joint right there. As for the arms hinge out. Comfortably, I would say at a 45. I would not go any further than that, just because that's going to push right off to the ball joint, and potentially even break it as well. The arms rotate all the way around. It does have a hinge joint, just a single hinge in the elbow, and the hands also do rotate. Now, with his arms, in many of the cases with the Transformers, again, they're adding these extra pieces. So you can see how this is a separate piece over top of a regular Minimate body. He has no waist swivel, just because, again, like this body is kind of encasing the regular Minimate underneath. But his legs do still hinge forward and back, bend at the knee, and he does have sort of the articulation where the bottom of his car boot actually just fits over top of a regular Minimate body. So there's Bumblebee. Let's go ahead and get his blaster back in his hand. Very nice looking figure. Moving now on over to Optimus Prime, one of my personal favorites from this set. This is one of those cases where I thought to myself, did I ever really need a Bumblebee Minimate? And now that I have it in front of me, the answer is that yes. Yes, I did need an Optimus Prime Minimate. Short of the fact that his torso doesn't open up, they did actually sculpt in there, at least a sticker, I guess, they did put in there, an Autobots Matrix of Leadership. And that's really fun, the fact that they would have actually put that in there. Now, he does have, again, the helmet piece that's over top of a regular Minimate body. So, like, for example, you can remove the helmet, and you can see this just kind of this vacant-looking face looking right back at you. One thing that you can actually do, though, going back to the idea of mixing and matching the parts, go back to the one that came included with Bumblebee. You may say this blasphemous. Why is he doing this? But if you put this head over top, you get larger looking eyes. I kind of like that, actually, even though it is missing the nose in the middle there. There's that option as well if you wanted to. Let's go back to the OG, just because the figure didn't come included with it, or wasn't really intended for that. But again, the idea of mixing and matching these is always something that Minimates have done really, really well. You can see there's the Autobot logo there on the top of his shoulder. Let's just fix, the helmet. I just want to make sure it's lined up properly. There we go. Yeah, he does have the Autobot logo there on the top. Does have little smokestacks. Too short, I think, to poke some kid in the eye. Why did they have to shorten the stacks on Prime so long ago? That's ridiculous. And again, like, all of the pieces over top of his body are loose. Well, like extra pieces that they slide over top of the existing Minimate body. So things like his arms, for example, do move a little bit around on you. Some nice detailing that they did put to the top of the forearm there. The little triangular piece that he has. Love the fact that they included this. And again, like, the top of his trailer mode, or I guess the top of his cab mode, would have been over top of the Minimate body. Can you see that? I hope you can see it. Okay, good, you can see that. It does result in the figure having a little bit of articulation, but yeah, you can't really do too much with it. Figure does come with a couple of accessories, one of which being his ion blaster. We can go ahead. Actually, you know what? Before we put it into his hand, show you guys quickly what that looks like. It's not quite gray, and it's not quite black. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a nice replica, though, of the ion blaster that Prime would carry around with him. And again, you can put that into his hand. These Minimates have really fun clamp hands that really do a great job of holding the accessories. Although when it comes to the ion blaster, it's a little harder to get it into Prime's arms, just simply because the back stock of it is going to get so close to his forearm. But yeah, you can see, he perfectly holds the ion blaster in his hand. The thing he also comes included with, ever since that first episode, it seems like Prime always comes in. It's not, I guess, the first episode. Was it the second episode on the dam? Ever since then, Prime seems to come included with his axe. He's never really used it anything else other than that one episode, and yet every single Prime comes included with it. It's nice in it as a small accompanying piece to come included with a Mini-Mate Prime. To do that, I'm just going to choose this hand because the other hand is already currently holding his blaster. Let's go ahead and just wiggle the hand off. You can see it removes by peg, and it leaves a very vacant hole that you can then take the axe and slide in place. So yeah, if you wanted to, you could display Prime with his ion blaster in his one hand, and display him with the axe in the other. Articulation will be the exact same on Prime, so I'm not going to spend and dedicate a lot of time really to going through it. But it's going to be the same articulation that came included with Bumblebee. And we'll go ahead. I guess we don't really need to put him on his display stand, but yeah, all the Minimates come included with their designated display stand. Shockwave and Starscream come included with no accessories, other than just the clear display stand. Considering for the fact that Shockwave does have the cannon on the end of his arm, and considering that Starscream has the null rays on the kind of shoulder area that we'll talk more about in a second, I would understand why they wouldn't have included accessories. It would have been nice, though, that maybe Starscream could have come included with like a little miniature version of Megatron. That always seems to be the case. Starscream comes included with Megatron. Anyways, though, short of looking at the clear display stand, which again is going to be the same for all the 4 figures. I said unique. They're not really unique. They're all the same type of display stand. We're going to put that to the side, though, and then move on to Shockwave. I have a personal soft spot for Shockwave because when I was a kid, I was always the kid that got the opposite thing. So instead of getting like an Optimus Prime, I was the kid that had Ultra Magnus. Instead of having a Megatron, I was the kid that had Shockwave. And I loved Shockwave as a kid growing up, maybe because I had the attachment to him. I think he is really nicely replicated here as a Mini-Mate. Smaller in size, yes, but yeah, it does check off all the boxes of what one would expect to find for Shockwave. The detailing done to just his body alone, as well as the metallic purple that they've used. He's got the little Decepticon logo down further on his arm. I love that his cannon, as well as its other hand, are making use of a translucent purplish pink color. The coloring on the front of his chest as well, almost as similar, although this one looks to be more, yeah, it's been painted on. I thought for a second it may have been a sticker, but it's been painted on. One singular Cyclop eye there for Shockwave. I really always like the look of that as well. Again, no transformation steps required because the figure doesn't have any transformation. But again, we'll just spin around to the back so you can see it. He has the more bulkier of the torso. When we kind of get to like the Decepticon territory, both him and Starscream have a much bigger, bulkier torso. If I just peel it back away, you can almost see, yeah, there's the Mini-Mate body underneath that. It really, again, smart the way that they design these. Still a regular Mini-Mate body, but then putting like shell pieces over top of it really gives you the character's unique traits and different designs. Now, again, Shockwave, his articulation, we'll just kind of cover this off. He's a little more limited just because it's kind of harder to kind of get in there. He does have a ball joint in the head, so yeah, you can rotate it up, down, back, kind of slightly angled off to the side. And now when it comes to his arms, you can't move the arms out as much as you could for both Prime and Bumblebee. It's because he's got a bigger shoulder to deal with. And you can see he's got a lot more of the torso. Careful, though, when you are moving his arms, though, because I find like his forearms are most susceptible to coming off. You can see how easily they slide right off. He does have the elbow bend, which we can kind of look at quickly before I put back the forearm. There we go. No waist swivel again, because the way that the shell is, it's too low down on his waist to really cover off the articulation. But normally, yeah, you'd be able to, you can kind of swivel it just a little bit, but not as much as you would normally be able to do with regular Mini-Mates. Legs split out. Again, you can bring the legs forward and back. He does have a bend at the knee, and kind of has articulation more so the way that the boot is just attached to the bottom of the leg. Looks very much like Shockwave, both as the toy and Shockwave from the cartoon. What little appearances he actually appears in. Moving then on to Starscream. Once again, no accessories with Starscream. Would have been fun to include a small miniature version of Megatron that he could have wielded in his hands. But at least he does have the null rays. They're attached to his shoulders. They don't seem to be something that can remove. Yeah, I wouldn't want to kind of fight that to try to pull those off. I do think that the smirk that they put on his face is classic looking Starscream. Again, if you wanted to, you can mix and match the parts. And considering for the fact that these parts were already molded by Diamond, you got to believe that at some point we might get ourselves a Thundercracker and Skywarp. We go even further from that, like Acid Storm, the Rainmakers from Cybertron could easily, again, make use of the molds that they've already got in place here. He looks very much like he does from the cartoon. You got the Decepticon logos on the backs of his wings. The coloring looks pretty good on these as well. Nice dark metallic red that they've used. Nice metallic silver for the wings. Now, with Starscream, he's going to be limited in articulation similar to when we looked at Shockwave. I almost feel like his articulation is just a little bit worse, just because he's got so much bulk there in the torso. As well, when you're considering the fact that he's got the wings on the back, I mean, when it comes to his arm articulation, you can bring his arms out like this, but moving him forward only gets to about there. Moving it back even less, just because, again, he's got the wings in the way of things. Still has the elbow bend, that's fine, as well as the swivel in the wrist. Of course, we overlooked his head sculpt. It moves back and forth, up and down, but again, he's got the back air intakes. I think those are the parts of the jet there on the back of his body there. That would, of course, limit articulation when it comes to moving his head back and forth, because you can't really rotate it past these points right here. He has mild swiveling down below, just a little bit happening here, just because, again, underneath the casing of his body. Again, leg split, knee bend, all the same regular articulation that we pretty much looked for Shockwave. Of this set, I actually think, even though I really like the look of Shockwave and I really like the look of Starscream, I think my favorites might actually be the Autobots. Bumblebee's fun looking. He's not the more traditional lemon yellow colors that I would expect for a Bumblebee. He's kind of more the closer colors to Goldbug. But between him and the look of Optimus Prime and the different accessories that come included with him, those are... Why is Shockwave looking at Starscream? Probably reaming him out for something. But yeah, of the 4 Minimates we're looking at here, my favorites are the Bumblebee and Optimus Prime. What are yours? Let me know down below in the comments section. Providing you're not one of those Transformer fans that pass on Transformer collectibles that, quote, don't transform, I think you'd actually rather like these Transformer Minimates. They're smaller representations of the characters that we grew up watching in the 80s, and at least you get 2 Decepticons and 2 Autobots. That, like other Minimates, first of all, don't take up a lot of space at all on a shelf, which is one of the more endearing qualities of this line. Whatever Minimate line you pick up, it doesn't have to be Transformers or G.I. Joe or anything, really, any Minimates. The charm of them is the fact that they take up so little space on a shelf. Superposable characters that you would have grown up with or known from film or television. Although, to be fair, though, when it comes to Transformers Minimates, they're not as posable as, say, the G.I. Joes that we looked at before. Some restrictions when it comes to the shoulder areas, because a lot of them have these over-shelled pieces that go over top of their existing Minimate bodies. Cases like Shockwave and Starscream seem to be sacrificing some of the articulation the most, with Autobot Optimus Prime and Bumblebee actually being the better of the 4, being that they have a little more posability freedom in their shoulders. I want to also draw your attention, if I can, to the back of the packaging here. You may have already noticed this, but there's definitely a color correction on the back of the packaging versus the one that I have here. It's likely that there is a metallic version of the Autobot and Decepticon Minimates that Diamond provided to me, because again, I can't help but notice on the back of the packaging, more familiar classic cartoon colors were used for Bumblebee, Optimus Prime, Starscream, and Soundwave. Even though these metallic ones are nice, I'd still like to pick up the classic cartoon colors, because for me, Bumblebee looks more like a lemon and looks less like Goldbug. And even though I do like the look of the metallic gold that they used for Bumblebee here, I kind of like the idea of seeing Bumblebee in the more brighter, like I said, lemon yellow colors. Either way, though, a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select that provide the sample of the Transformers Minimates that we could have a look at in this review. Have you picked up these for yourself? If you have, let me know down below in the comments section. And for your video question for today, who is your favorite Autobot and who is your favorite Decepticon? Let me know down below in the comments section. And hey, now if you are new to this channel, I hope to think you're enjoying the content you've been seeing here for so long, and if you haven't yet done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification so you get those friendly reminders of whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And I can also add on to that some additional 411 that we will be looking at more Diamond Select reviews. So make sure, yes, you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.